Man.
All right. Well, thank you, Anthony Pinto, from being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, welcome. I thank you for taking the time and thank you for your service. You're in the Navy right now, right?
I am, yeah, I am. Active duty Navy.
Wow, thank you. And today is a special day for you guys and everybody that's a veteran. My dad was a veteran. I greatly appreciate your service because it's something I would not do. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my honor. Truly, it's my honor. It's interesting. I totally forgot that today was Veterans Day until today. So, no,
Yep.
I appreciate it. I'm definitely feeling the love all the way around. But yeah, I appreciate it. And I didn't really do that much so far. Just as a submariner, there's definitely more people who deserve that than I
True.
do. But I appreciate it.
Thank you. So a little bit about Anthony before we get started. Anthony is a submariner, like you mentioned, and he went from 0 to 8 units in 6 months. A lot of people don't even achieve that much or less than that in that time frame, which is phenomenal. But now Anthony is focused on bigger deals, smaller to mid-sized multifamily units. So Anthony, can you tell the listeners a little bit about your history and how you got into real estate investing?
Sure. So like I said, I'm active duty submarine, so I've been in for about 5.5 years. I got off my sea tour on the USS Albany, which was in Norfolk, in November of last year. And about that time, like September of last year, is when I kind of realized I didn't want to be a submariner for 20 years and get out and retire. It just wasn't for me. And so I started doing a lot of research and what I could do afterwards to continue to make money. And I stumbled upon real estate investing as one of those methods, side hustles, if you will. And I just started reading a lot of books, typical rich dad, poor dad. That kind of opened my mind to real estate investing and really investing in kind of that entrepreneurial mindset in general. And then I also read Set for Life by Scott Trench, who's now the podcast host for I think it's Bigger Pockets Money Podcasting. It was called. Yeah, so I read his book, which opened my eyes up to house hacking. I never really thought about being able to buy a multifamily property and live in it and rent the other units and pretty much live for free. So those two combined books started doing my research a little bit more. That was about September, October timeframe. November, the day before Thanksgiving, I got off my boat and you know, basically told my wife like, "Hey, we're gonna buy property and we're gonna live in it, and we're gonna move in like a month." Which, as you can imagine, went over well. And so, it took her a little bit of a while to get around, get used to the idea. But so that would have been on a Wednesday. I got off. Next Monday, I went to my first meetup in the area and met my real estate agent who helped me buy my first few properties. And I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew I wanted a quad. I knew I was going to use my VA loan, and I knew I was going to house hack it. So with those, kind of criteria and framework in mind, I went to her. I was like, "Hey, this is what I want," and then we started looking at properties in the area. And it really just depends on the area that you live in. There's going to be a lot of multifamily properties, smaller multifamily specifically. So it happened to be that Norfolk and the Hampton Roads area in general has a multitude of multifamily properties, smaller triplexes, duplexes, quads. They're just all over the place. And so, we had probably about 10 that we really looked at, and then about three that we actually like went and drove around and looked at. And finally, we found this place here in Portsmouth, which is about 2 minutes away from where I work. And it was very overpriced, which is why it was still on MLS. We were lucky that it was still overpriced because the owners were very motivated to sell the property. It had been about 2 years it'd been on the market, and so went in under contract on it. Took about for 310. Original price was 350. Got into the last week before we were supposed to close on it, and the VA appraisal, which is the VA appraisers are notorious for being extremely diligent in their in their inspections and what they actually need fixed. So there's a number of different things that they need to get fixed. And then finally the last week he came back with the actual appraisal, and it was $23,000 less than what we had the asking price for. Right. So I was like, oh shoot, like I have to now make up this almost 25 grand, chunk of money and gap that so I can buy it. And so I was scrambling around trying to figure it out. And the owners came back and said, "Hey, like, if you pay closing costs, we'll go with 287. So it's like, okay, that's still like, that's still 7 grand that I wasn't expecting to have to pay. So, in the end, it worked out really well. Got about $63,000 off the purchase price, which is about 20% off the original price, which was a steal. So we moved in February. I've been living here ever since. We rent out 2 of the units and Airbnb the last one. We're actually just packing up our stuff to move to Japan, so it's going to be 3 units that are going to be rented out, and then the last one is going to be for travel nursing. So it's going to be a furnished unit that we're going to use for travel nurses.
Wow.
So that was our first property. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but yeah, I can keep going if you want.
Oh yeah, I just want to touch points on a couple bases that when you first started off, you already had your criteria of what you wanted, the market you wanted to go into, and you was very specific about what. So that I believe helped you achieve so much so quickly because you was very detailed about what you wanted to achieve, and so quickly you was able to achieve it, which is awesome.
Exactly.
Uh, Continue on. So how did you get into it, and how did you find it? You say you found it out from your broker from the meetup?
So that the quad I found was on MLS still, but my real estate agent, got me the information for it. We went and toured it, and it, like I said, it was way overpriced, which is why it was still on the market. So that's how we found that one. The second property I got, well, it's the second investment property, was a triplex that was about 10 minutes away from here, and it was how I found that one was and right when this one came in the market, Redfin sent me an email alert saying, "Hey, like this came in the market for this price." And I was like, "Oh shoot!" Like, I just a quick analysis, really quick. I use a 1% rule, which is, the 1% of the purchase price should be what you should be able to rent it for. And it was almost like 1.5% per, yeah. So I was like, "Oh man, this sounds like a steal. Like, if we could get this locked down, this could be, instant cash flow for us." So that it came out on a Monday. Tuesday, or it came out Monday night. Tuesday afternoon, I went and actually looked at it, like just from the outside. And I told my real estate agent, like, "Hey, I want information on this. Send me whatever." And then by Wednesday afternoon, she sent me all the info. I was like, "Hey, like you need to put in your offer like right now because there's already more offers in. Like if you want to get it, you like need to go in now." So I was like, "Oh damn." So yeah, it was Wednesday afternoon. Put in an offer. Put in over asking, about 6 grand over asking, which is the highest purchase price, and we ended up getting under contract. So within 36 hours of that hitting the market, we had her under contract. And even at that higher price, we were still able to cash a pretty good chunk of money off of it.
Nice.
So that was the second investment property. That one's a little more unique in that we used a joint venture or a JV to purchase that one. So I found after I got under contract, it's found 2 other investors to basically provide the closing costs and the down payment to purchase that property. So, at the closing table, I didn't have any of my own money in the deal. And I found these 2 partners to fund it. And, we got it under contract, purchased it, closed on it. And, we set up the deal where each person was going to get a certain amount of cash flow in equity based off of what their initial capital contribution was. And I put some money into renovations itself. Like I built a fence. I had to pay for some washer and dryer. So ended up putting about 10 grand total into it. Yeah, so, we ended up working everything out. And I got that purchase about a month after the quad. So within, I guess, 3 months of really starting with real estate investing, went from having 1 property, which was my single family home that I bought when I first moved here, to having 8 units in about 3 months. So pretty quick timeline there for sure.
Wow, that's phenomenal. The power of just taking consistent action. Like you read a couple books, you decided this being in the Navy for 20 plus years is not for me. So you decided to find a different career path. You found real estate investing and you took consistent action and you gained results from it in very quick time frame as well. That's phenomenal. So you mentioned the traveling nurses and your joint venture. Can we go back into how did you find the people from your joint ventures? Like where did you find them from?
Sure. So I think the key is how you present the deal. So we got the deal under contract, and then I made a deal package for that property. So I basically put together an offering memorandum for that. So I had an executive summary. I was like, hey, this is how old the property is. This is what the renovations have been. This is a value add opportunity play on it. This is what it could rent for. This is how much potential cash flow it is. This is how much your returns could be based off of what equity split you want to get. What the neighborhood's like, what the property manager's like. So I basically put it together like I was going to find like investors for like a larger apartment deal, right? And so I got the deal package together, and I just went to a ton of meetups. I probably after that week after I got under contract, I probably went to 7 different meetups across the area. And the first guy I met, both of these guys are Navy, by the way. First guy I met was off a Bigger Pocket. So what I had done was when I first got started in November, I made it a goal that I was going to meet a new person every day, connect with a new person on Bigger Pockets. And it was as simple as, hey, like I'm getting into real estate investing. I'm in this area. This is what I'm looking at. These are the properties I have. Would you like to connect? And I would try to connect with the person locally each day. And my first investor was one of those guys that I talk with. And so, I had 100 different people that I had lined up within my inbox, and I was like, okay, I essentially started Bigger Pockets messaging, blasting people saying, hey, like, I have a deal. Would you be interested in a JV? Like, these are the details. Let me know if you have any questions on it. And so I had a couple people that were interested, and he happened to be one of them. And so we happened to go to the same school, and we had a lot in common. So had him over for coffee at my house. We talked, and he was my first investor for 12 grand and on the deal.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
awesome. The power of networking. That's what I love about real estate business in general is a lot of people focus on the numbers and the cash flow. That's cool, is awesome. But to actually get a lot of stuff done quickly like you have is networking, is the relationships you build. Like you may set a goal, one person a day. Very easily doable for anybody that's looking to get started. One person a day, and then the results that you achieve from afterwards, phenomenal. So
Exactly.
you mentioned earlier the traveling nurses and your Airbnb, the other rentals, and what is a
hmm
traveling nurse?
I guess yeah, I'll explain that. So there are about 8 different hospitals within a 10-mile radius of my house. And so there's a lot of doctors and nurses that travel to different hospitals to fill a void or a need. So let's say, so my wife is also a nurse, and her friend is a traveling nurse. So she knows how difficult it is for travel nurses to find housing. So let's just say that a particular department in a hospital is having a shortage of nurses. Someone had a baby, someone's sick. It's a time of year where that department is particularly busy. And so, they need 10 nurses, but they only have 8. So they, essentially cast out a net to these rental agencies that say, hey, like we need a travel nurse that fits this description to come in for 3, 6, 9 months or whatever amount of time, right? And so the travel nurses go to these hospitals and they'll work there for a certain amount of time, right? And then in the meantime, they live in it's a furnished apartment typically for a short amount of time, but it's longer than you would typically see with an Airbnb. So it's just like I said, travel nurses are nurses that travel to fill a gap in a hospital's personnel quota, essentially. And so, that was an untapped market I saw in this area is that there's a lot of people that move to this area looking for housing. And there's a couple different sites that we use for that, but we can get a higher rent than we could if we just Airbnb'd or if we just did long-term rental, like a normal long-term rental, not furnished. So there's a lot of draw to do travel nursing. Like you got a company that'll guarantee pay for it because it goes through the company, the travel nursing company, rather than the individual. They're typically not there a lot. They're working long hours, and they're typically very well kept. So, there's a lot of win-win-wins with the situation with travel nursing that really appeal to this location specifically.
Nice way to be understanding of the market. Like you took awareness, like there's a lot of hospitals and a lot of residents and nurses that could use it. And it's like the creative thinking to like, how can we utilize this property better? And you thought of the the traveling nurses and utilize that, which is phenomenal. And to have that stream be somewhat more higher than the Airbnb or long-term nurses, that's even better resources. Like you said, it's a win-win for everybody, which is awesome.
Exactly.
So right now, what are you focusing on right now? Like, what is your current goal?
Yeah, so after we had those two properties closed on in February timeframe, I started looking into like thinking like larger. It's like why buy these smaller multifamilies when I can get into larger buildings, like larger apartment buildings, like 20, 30, 50, 100 units. And what really kind of dawned on me is that I it takes the same amount of work to run this 4 unit, this quad, as it does to run a single family home, right? But there's even more risk with a single family home or even a quad, right? If I have one eviction, I'm now at 75% vacancy, right? Or if I'm at one eviction with a single family home, I am making no money off it. It's 100% vacant, right? And then you got to go through all the costs, and it just takes a while to fill that void, right? And so it just dawned on me, it's like, why would I put all this effort when I can just into smaller properties to eventually get up to 100 units total when I can just buy a 100 unit, right? And so I started looking more into apartment buildings, read a few more books, got into Michael Blanc's program, bought his course, great course, by the way. Got a lot of benefits to it. And it just kind of opened my eyes to commercial real estate and multifamily investing. And started going to a lot of conferences, started looking at a lot of different properties, went to LoopNet, did a lot of underwriting, started establishing all these different relationships, and so now we've transitioned into the multifamily realm and expanded into the Kansas City, Charlotte, Raleigh, and kind of Hampton Roads areas. Um, but the first thing we did was just go to each of these markets and build our teams on the ground. So in each of those cities, I have boots on the ground partners that can go look at a property when I get them from a broker, or I found an off market property that can go take a look at. And they can give me their honest opinion on it. And we have an alignment of interest because they are not only boots on the ground, but they're also partners in the deal themselves. Right. So they have a vested interest in this property being a good property, right? Or a good deal, right? And I think regardless of where you invest, if it's going to be in your backyard or halfway across the country, right, you have to have someone on the ground that can consistently go look at these properties. And whether that is right off the bat when you get a property by a broker, or when you actually have closed on that property and you have a property management company running it, so that they can go periodically check on it, right? Because especially if you're in the military or have a job that is very time intensive, it's hard to get away on a regular basis to go look at these properties, right? Whether that's monthly, quarterly, whatever. And so it's paramount to have those people on the ground that can go look at those properties for you and kind of give you a situational awareness of what's going on with them, right? And because it's one thing to be able to remotely do a lot of this work, which you can. Like there's LoopNet, you can go to Google Maps, you can do apartments.com, you can figure out all the comps for it, you can talk with property managers, right? But at the end of the day, like I'm from Kansas City originally. Like I have a pretty good understanding of generally of the area, but I can't get down into the nitty gritty details of like this street is bad, a street over is good, right? Or this apartment has historically had, this gang problem. Like I don't know that because I'm not there. Like I'm not, in the weeds and talking with the people and talking with the locals and have that understanding, right? So it really is paramount. I think it's almost a necessity to have someone on the ground, whether they are actually a partner or not, going to look at these properties. So that's the first thing I did is I looked at real estate investment groups in the area that I was looking at. So Kansas City, I've joined a number of different Facebook groups, real estate investment Facebook groups. Talked with a whole bunch of different brokers. Started networking with people through bigger pockets that were local. Again, kind of did the same thing. So I just reached out to people who were local to Charlotte, Raleigh, Kansas City area, and just started connecting with them, saying, "Hey, like, I'm interested in this. These are my criteria. Would you be interested in partnering up on something?" And so it just started establishing all those relationships. Started interviewing a lot of different property managers. Started talking with brokers. Got my whole broker prompt and kind of cold calling script set up for myself. And I just kind of repeated that over and over and over again. And I got a lot better at talking with brokers and establishing those relationships. And I think that's really key in really any business that you do. I went to a conference about a month ago, a Rod Khalif conference, and one of the things that really stuck with me and what he said is that business is two things: it's people and processes, right? So if you can establish those people, those right people in the right places, and you can establish the processes to make them streamline and have all the gears and the lines that go from contract to closing, and all that can be as automated as possible, then you're going to be golden, right? But it takes time to find the right people. It takes time to get all these processes set in place, right? But I think if you're truly dedicated to your cause and you truly have a passion about it, like you will make it work. You will find time for it. You will find the right people for it. You will find the right processes for it, and you'll get everything in line to, drive your own success. And I think that's absolutely key. And it really just comes down to people and processes. That's really all it is. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Definitely. There's main two things that the key points, peoples and processes, especially in any business. You gotta have the team and process to do it, to achieve what you want, especially with the teamwork. Like I love how you took the process you had from the single family in the quads and just duplicated it for a bigger scale for the multifamily. Just I'm already done networking with the brokers, with investors. It's the same process for bigger scales. That's what a lot of people are afraid of when they think about going bigger. Is I don't know how to do it. Just look at what you have already done and duplicate it. It's that simple, and I love it. And I love how you set it up in different markets as well that you're potentially interested in, just to have the boots on the ground, because it is necessary to have a team wherever you think about investing in. I love it.
Absolutely. And in to your point, like I think a lot of people think that multifamily, whether it's smaller multifamily or large apartment buildings, is kind of this like taboo thing that only the wealthiest of individuals with the most experience can get into. But I think it's almost easier to buy an apartment building than it is to buy a single family home or a smaller multifamily. Because when you're talking about larger apartment buildings, like you have a lot more people who have a lot more money that could put into these deals, and I think that's absolutely key is you can use other people's money to purchase these properties, and it's not just using other people's money. It's like you're providing them incredible opportunities to buy a property and get a more stable tax-free cash flow than they could whether their money's in the stock market or wherever they have their money, right? And a lot of people don't really think about it like that. They don't think about that they can raise the money for it. Now, raising money is difficult. I will say that. Like, it's you're not going to raise $2 million the first day that you decide, oh, I'm going to go buy an apartment building, right? It takes time. You got to go find people. You got to get a track record. You got to get experience. You got to find people who would partner with who have that experience. If you don't, right? But it's I like to say you have to have three things to get into real estate investing, or really any business in general. You got to have time, money, or experience, right? You got to have at least one of those things. And if you don't have two, at least three, if you only have one of those things, you can have a partner that can fill the other two, right? So for me, my thing that I have is time. I have a lot of time to go talk with brokers, analyze properties, make content, talk with property managers, analyze deal. Like I can do all these things that take a lot, that are very time intensive and take a lot of time, right? So I could do a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the hustling and running around, and I can find people who have money to come into the deal. I can find people who have experience to come in and help manage the renovations or the rehab or the actual property management company for that, right? So I think that's key. Like if you have money, like it's really easy to get into multifamily, right? Or really any real estate investing in general. If you have the experience, like you can totally use that to help guide someone who may have the money and the time, found a great property and just don't know how to go about actually getting under contract, getting it to closing, all the due diligence involved, right? So just kind of take stock of what you have, and if you have one of those things, leverage that to find the other two, right? It's really as simple as that. Um,
Exactly.
and there's a few more benefits to it. Like you're talking economy of scale. There's a lot less risk. Say risk. There's a lot less risk associated with it, right? If I have one vacancy, that's 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 50 rather than 1 out of 1, right? There's a whole bunch of ways you can make money off of it: fees, cash flow. The depreciation is amazing off of it. That's why a lot of people get into multifamily specifically, whether it's the active side or the passive side, is a big tax benefits from it. So for example, I don't know if your listeners know what depreciation is, but kind of a basic overview is a property depreciates much like a car does after you purchase it, right? So, right when you purchase it, a certain amount is depreciating, whether that's the roof, the flooring, appliances, whatever, parking lot. Depreciates a certain amount each year, right? So let's just say that's $400,000 a year that depreciates, but you're only making $100,000 in cash flow. So on paper, it looks like you're in $300,000 in the hole, right? And so now you are making cash flow, even though you're making $100,000, you're actually in the hole on taxes, $300,000. So that is essentially tax-free cash flow that you're getting off of that. And a lot of people don't. It's not money back in your pocket, but it's money you're saving on taxes that you don't have to pay it, I guess, if that makes sense, right? And it's a little more complicated than that, and you can get into cost segregation analysis and a little more detailed than that. But there's just so many different benefits to it. The fact that you can force appreciate a property, like my hard work can go into renovating that unit. I can raise the rent on it or lower the expenses. Now the property is worth even more. Like what? Like a lot of people just don't understand that side of it. What is very different when you're talking like smaller multifamily or single family homes, like it is very dependent upon the units around it or other properties that are similar to that. Similar kind of build layout the neighborhoods. But with apartment buildings, I can buy something that is a really awful property for $1 million, put a whole bunch of money into it, and now it's worth $2 million, right? And that's all for the hard work and the sweat equity that I put into it, and really kind of taking the challenge and finding a solution for that problem that it has, right? Which is really what it comes down to. As real estate investors or entrepreneurs in general, we're just problem solvers, right? So find that problem, first of all, figure out what the problem is, because you may not fully understand what the full picture is behind it, right? You may not understand why the seller is motivated to sell, or why this property is only at 50% occupancy, right? And so kind of figuring out, okay, like what is the actual problem with this property? Okay, is it because it's got a really bad reputation? Is it because it has a capex issue? Is it because it's got a gang issue and like everyone's afraid to live there, right? So like really understanding the problem, and then understanding enough that you can provide a solution or find people to help you provide the solution, I think is key to really any business in general, but I think it's absolutely key to real estate. So be a problem solver. I think as a real estate investor, you have to be a problem solver.
So true. As a real estate investor, like you mentioned, and as an entrepreneur in general, the whole point is to solve problems, to ease the pain for somebody else, and in result, you actually profit from it. Don't go straight into try to make profit, but fix the solution, fix the problem first, and then you'll be uh, receive the benefits from it. Just like in property, like you mentioned about the properties, like one side of the street is a good neighborhood, right across the street is a bad neighborhood. And I didn't really realize that until I actually start diving deeper into real estate myself and looking at bigger, larger properties. And it was so true. Right across the street is the worst neighborhood, and the other side is the best neighborhood to be in. It is very phenomenal how detailed and how the subtle changes in the market could be that so detailed just by the street by street process is
Mhm.
phenomenal, which is the partners of having a team. And the self-awareness, like you said, if you have one out of the three, you can still get into multifamily investing or real estate in general. Just like you said, partner. Everybody can't do everything. So you got to find a way to provide value for somebody else. Either you have the time, the experience, or the money. There's some way for you to be able to provide value for somebody else to get into multifamily investing. I love it, Anthony. I love it. So you mentioned how you're raising capital, you're meeting with investors, you're looking at larger property investors. What is your 5-year goal from now? Like, what is your units goal that you're achieving from now?
Yeah, so I'm heading to Japan in about a month, and we'll be there for about 3 years, my wife and I. So my goal is by the time I leave Japan and get out of the Navy, I will be financially free, right? I will have $10,000 worth of passive income every month coming in, and whether that's with 200 units or 500 units, my goal is the amount of cash flow, right? And so shorter term goal is I want to be able to close on a 50 unit by the end of the year. By the next summer, I want to have a 100 unit under closed on, and then by the end of next year, I want to have 150 units. So by the end of this time next year, I'd like to have 100 or 200 units under my belt, and then just build up from there. It's crazy like how quickly once you get up to that realm of like that many units, like how quickly you start getting a lot more deals, and everything just kind of flows together, right? You get your name established, you get a brand set up for yourself, like you have a proven track record. You start making money for all your investors, and now they just start coming back for more and more and more, right? And and I think that's absolutely key. And Michael Blanc talks about this a lot as well, is that it's a law of the first deal, right? As long as you get your first deal done, like the second, third, fourth, it all just kind of rolls downhill from there. It just all kind of picks up speed, and it's just getting that first deal out of the way to get the ball rolling, to figure out what you're doing, find partners, get a track record established, and just get everything moving from there. And I think that first deal is absolutely key to that. And so that's what we're looking for right now is our first large big deal that we're doing. So those are the ultimate goals. I'm not necessarily set on doing 5,000 or 10,000 units in the next 5 years. Like I know a lot of people that do that get like 2,000 units in like 3 years. Incredible amount of hustle involved with that. I just don't know if I'm ready at that point because at the same time, like I want to be financially free, right? My goal isn't a number of units and to make a ton of money. Like I have a very set goal because I want to be able to get out, spend time with my wife, go travel, right? My ultimate goal is to travel the world. I want to visit every single country in the world. I want to visit space. I want to have essentially like a brewery, bar, or coffee shop and bookstore called Pinto's Beans Books and Brews. Like I have like all these different plans that I want to do. That real estate is a vessel to get me to that point, a vessel to get me to be financially free. And I absolutely love this. I love talking about real estate. I love analyzing deals and talking with investors and getting kind of boots on the ground and walking properties. I love doing that. Right. But at the end of the day, like, my ultimate goal is to be financially free. Right. It is to have enough passive income coming in that I can transition into enjoying my life, enjoying my prime of my life. Like going and travel while I still have the opportunity to spending time with the family while I still have the opportunity to. So those are ultimately what my goals are. So we'll see what the next few years have in store for me. I think I'm gonna be a little bit busier when I get to Japan, but yeah, I'm still gonna try to invest as much as possible still.
I love it. I love how you mentioned how it's not the money that you're really for, is the goal, your dreams, your ambitions that you're striving for. The same for me is I got into multifamily not because of the money. I like the financial freedom it can provide is the goals I have set up for myself, not only for myself, but for my daughter and for like the community. Like I have community involvement ideas that I can't do yet because of the cost and the impact it can have. Like, okay, how can I provide this for these other people? And the end, multifamily can help me because of like the economy of scale. The impact it can have is much larger and a bigger scale that it could have. So it trickles down from there. So that's is an awesome idea to just not focus on the numbers, but focus on your end results, your why, like the freedom. Like I've talked to other people on the podcast where they're let go from a job and they're like, now what? But with financial freedom, you're not what do I feel like doing today? What do I feel like achieving for next week? That is your
Mhm.
freedom. That's what people are striving for, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, man. I like to. So one of my affirmations for my miracle morning is I tell myself the more money I have, the more opportunities I have to impact the world. Right.
Love it.
And money is not the end goal. It is what I can do with that money. It's what I can. It's the organizations I can help. It's the people I can help. It's the lifestyle I can provide for my family and myself. Like that is the ultimate use of that money, and it just happens to be a vehicle to get me to what our goals are. Right. But like I said, like the more the better off I am with the more money I have, the more money I can put into organizations, the more impact I can have on people. And I just think about that every day.
Yep. Money, in my mindset, money is a tool, just like a hammer and a nail to build a house. You use
Hmm.
money as a tool, and the end result is phenomenal what you could achieve with it. I love it. So you mentioned the Miracle Morning. What other books do you read or have had an impact on you through your real estate career?
Yeah, I've read a few different books. Like I said, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Set for Life by Scott Trench are great. I'm also reading Joe Fairless's book right now, the best ever apartment syndication book. Phenomenal read if you haven't read it. It is, it is laid out in such a fashion that it's almost like a step by step kind of guide to, it talks about everything from starting off from nothing, figuring out what your criteria are, figuring out what your markets you are and how to brand yourself from there. Like if you're starting from nothing, like how you start branding yourself and making yourself into the multifamily expert. And then for there, analyzing properties, getting them under contract, how you do due diligence, like all of that. But it's very step by step, and that's what I love about it. Like as a submariner, like I really appreciate like operating procedures. I really appreciate like the processes, the step by step instructions, because that is what I live by, on an almost daily basis. Like we have procedures and instructions for literally everything, like step-by-step instructions for like how to write a memo, like how to do this particular, evolution, like everything is very laid out. So that's what I really like about the book. Michael Blank's book, Financial Freedom Through Real Estate Investing. It's a great one. That's the one I started with. It got me into multifamily. Raising Private Money by Matt Faircloth is a really good one. I used that a lot when I first was finding investors for the triplex. Let's see, what else do I have? Vinny Chopra has a really good book. Apartment Syndication Made Easy. I have that one down there. It's up next to read. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Great read. It's just like Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's like that quintessential, entrepreneurial read. So those are a number of books I'm in. I mean, I have a lot of different books that I've read since getting started with this, and actually, it brings me up. So my wife and I started a blog that basically chronicles our whole life from where we were a fledgling investor to now. And the reason we started it is because that triplex, right after we bought that triplex, 2 weeks after we closed on it, it got broken into, and all of the appliances and all of the heat pumps got stolen. Right. So we had about $15,000 worth of damage. And within 2 weeks of that, right? And insurance almost didn't cover it, because it had been another week and a half after that had happened, it would have been vacant for a whole month, and insurance wouldn't have covered it. So we were very lucky that insurance came in and actually covered everything. But it was just a huge headache you have to deal with, because now we had to get new appliances in, and then we had to, get everything fixed up, and they blew a whole bunch of fuses and the air handlers. Anyway, so it was a huge headache dealing with that. There was a number of different issues that came up as we actually started running all these, like the air conditioning units and all that. There were a lot of corners cut by the contractor who, redid this place. So we just had a lot of issues, and it was like a lemon there for a while. So we started this blog because people started, every time we went to a meetup, it was like, "What's up with Carver?" which is triplex is on Carver Circle. So they'd ask, "What's up with Carver?" and we give them the latest update. And it was like a sitcom. There's just like what's the newest episode for this week of what happened, like what's the flavor of the week. So it's like why talk to individual people about this when we can just kind of put it out to the masses and tell people about the issues we've had. Because I wish that I would have had all of these lessons learned. I wish that I would have had someone talk to me about the bad side of investing before I got into this, right? Because I would have had second guesses about this triplex. Because looking back on it now, it was in a really bad area, right? It was by far the best property in that area. So it was almost like a diamond in the rough in this area, and it was just like a beacon for people to kind of hone in on if they're looking to get into trouble in this property. So anyway, we started this blog, and it just chronicles our life and our lessons learned that we got from that. And on that page, I put in all the resources that I use: websites, podcasts, books, and different people I talked to and used. And that's all on our blog. It's called rookierealestateblog.com. And it lays it all out there, different resources we use, and it's very much oriented towards a first-time investor. When I was first getting started, there was just a fire hose of information that I was looking up, whether it was Bigger Pockets, all these podcasts, books. It's just how do you absorb all of this information? Because it's just constantly bombarding you, and it's hard to get started. So we really want to use that blog as a way to kind of guide the first-time investor to say, okay, depending on what you want to do, these are the books you should probably start with, right? Because that's how I got started. Or these are the blogs or the podcasts that we listen to, or the websites that we use. And this is kind of generally how we went about getting into investing, right? Because I think having a kind of a proven success track record and showing people how they can move through it, a lot more easily than I did to start off with, I think it is paramount to people sticking with it. A lot of people get into this and realize I don't know a lot. I don't have the knowledge. They just start doubting themselves. They have these limiting beliefs. I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough to do this. I don't have the time. I don't have the experience. I don't have the education for this. I don't know the right people. I don't know how to raise money. And they just say have all of these I don't statements instead of I do. And I have seen this proven before, this person in the exact same situation, someone who's in the Navy, still active duty doing this, right? Someone who doesn't have a lot of money to start off with doing this, right? And so we just kind of wanted to be a paragon for people that have these self-limiting beliefs about what they can and can't do. And, it just, at the end of the day, you just need to push past all that. You just need to get your education, sure, get smart, know what you're doing, have enough credibility built up that you can talk to someone about what you're doing and what you want and what you want to go to, right? And just take action. It's really hard. You just got to take action, right? If you have one of those gaps, like I said, money or experience, you can find people for that, right? It's not the end of the world if you don't have any of that and you can find a property under contract, right? But if you don't know what you're doing, definitely talk to someone about it, right? Don't go, don't find a property that you think is going to be the best property in the world that ends up being a lemon, right? Because you want to get a property under your belt, like you're itching to get a property under your belt, like be smart about it. And if you don't know what you're doing, find someone that can help you. That can be a mentor for you, whether that's someone who's done exactly what you're doing or someone who is trying to do the same thing that you're doing now, like someone that's a peer to you, right? I think having that accountability is key. And whether that's actually finding a mentor, like a paid mentor, whether that's just going to a meetup and helping someone that is senior to you, that is has a number of units that has done what you're doing, and just adding value to their lives. Whether that's joining a mastermind group or a Facebook group, whatever. It doesn't have to be an official, established organization, whatever. Just get somebody out there that knows what you're doing, and surround yourself with those people that do nothing but support you, whether you're making a terrible decision or not. Right? If they know what they're doing and they have a vested interest in you, they'll tell you it's a bad deal, right? Or they'll tell you it's a great deal, right? And they'll probably want to get on board with it. So yeah, I think a lot of people say like you are the whole of the five closest people that you deal with, right? And so if the five closest people you deal with are constantly putting you down for wanting to do real estate, or have no clue anything about real estate, or don't care, or are super unmotivated and just spend their weekends watching Netflix, binge watching some show, like get those, don't hang out with those people, right? If real estate investing or any entrepreneurial business is what you want to do in life, like you need to surround yourself with people that are constantly going to motivate you, that are constantly going to keep you accountable, that are constantly going to keep moving you forward and pushing you forward, and push you to be your best self. Because that's the only way you're going to get ahead, right? Like, I have days that are, super unproductive. There are days that I'll be like, all I want to do is just lay on the couch after a long day at work and do nothing. But, I have grounded into myself, and I have people who I talk to about on almost a daily basis about what I'm doing and what I've done, and like why I didn't do what I said I was going to do for that day, and like why I had all this time blocked out that I didn't do. Like, and my wife kind of helps me with that too. But like, I have people that constantly push me forward, that constantly keep me going. And if I didn't have that, like, I don't think I would be where I am today, right? And so yeah, I think that's absolutely key, whether you're going to be in real estate investing or in business in general, is having people who have the same interests as you, and surrounding with those people that are constantly pushing you to be your best self.
Exactly. It's the power of your team, your network, your influence, the people you surround yourself with is who you eventually will become. There was quotes I've seen on the internet is, if you want to become a millionaire, hang out with millionaires. If you want to become a billionaire, you hang out with them, because you eventually will pick up on what they do, and then you start taking the same action. But like you said, you have to take action. When I first got to real estate, like similar to you, I was flooded with resources of information of how to make money in real estate. Like you could buy notes, you could fix and flip, you could the bird strategy. I'm like, which one do I start with? Then it's like you said before, is just that self-awareness of what am I skilled at, what can I actually provide value to other people, capitalize on that, utilize that, and then go from there. But I love it, Anthony. I love the value you gave to the listeners. A phenomenal job. The stuff you accomplished so far, and the stuff you set for yourself ahead of for you, is phenomenal. And you're still active, and then you're going across the country, and you're still investing in real estate as well. There's no more excuses for anybody to get into real estate. It's like, if there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way. Yep. That's how I see it. Exactly, so we could transition into my fire round. You already answered one of my questions, so we'll shorten it down to two. Okay. But I got two questions for you. The first one is, what is your favorite snack, late night snack?
Oh, favorite late night snack. So there's a farmer's market that we have here on a weekly basis, and I try to go at a certain time, because there's this little lady that always sells like her baked goods, and her name's Annie, and her company's name's Anointed Annie. and she has this banana pudding that is phenomenal. And I always buy her out of all her banana pudding. And I buy so much sometimes that I'm just like sick of it by the end of the week. And but yeah, I think that Anointed Annie's banana pudding at my local farmers market is my late snack or my late night snack for sure.
Awesome. Shout out to the Anointed Auntie. For me, like similar to you, there's a farmer's market I try to go to on the weekends. They have the baked desserts. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, I so much trouble trying to eat baked desserts. I'm like, I can't help it. So, being an entrepreneur, real estate investor, we have busy days, and sometimes we just need to relax from the day, just unwind. What do you like to do to help you go at the end of the day?
Um, well, honestly, like real estate is my, I hate to say real estate, is my way to relax at the end of the day. Like I enjoy doing this so much. I enjoy just spending time looking at properties and talking with people. Like that is my all relaxing time because like I work a W-2 job and then my afternoons or my evenings are spent doing real estate. But I think outside of real estate, I have some Netflix shows that are my guilty pleasure. I try to go do trivia, once or twice a week. I read a lot of books. I go work out. But honestly, I think a big part is just walk. I just walk my dog at the end of the day. Whether it's 20 degrees outside or not, like just getting out of the house and just getting away from whether it's real estate or work, and just it just gives me time to think. It gives me time to unwind and relax, whether I'm constantly thinking about real estate or not. It also kind of gives me a way to kind of clear my mind and kind of be silent from whatever's going on. I think that's absolutely key, is just having those rituals to just get out of yourself and just get away from whether it's real estate or work and or family, or just you just kind of need some alone time to just decompress. And for me, that's walking the dog.
Awesome. We gotta have, I call it my me time, like your self-reflection
Hmm.
time, because we're in a busy world now, especially as investors, entrepreneurs, we're in a busy world. You gotta have your me time, your personal time, even if it's 5, 10 minutes, however long you're walking the dog or doing something. It's time to reflect. There's nothing wrong with it. You gain, like you say, you gain a lot of clarity from doing something like that
Right.
consistently as well, which is awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. Can you let the listeners know how they can contact you?
Sure. So you can find more about us at our website, pintocapitalinvestments.com. There's also a link to our blog on there as well. And it's still in a work in progress right now. We're revamping the website, but you can definitely check that out. We also have a Facebook page, Pinto Capital Investments, as well. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on all those different platforms with my name, Anthony Pinto, or Pinto Capital Investments. And then you can also reach me by email, pinto.capital@gmail.com, or Anthony@pintocapitalinvestments.com. Any one of those methods.
Awesome. I love it. You mentioned LinkedIn. That's how we actually connected, is through LinkedIn. I
Yep.
love using LinkedIn. It is a phenomenal tool. I'm trying to utilize more platforms, but LinkedIn is my favorite right now. Just I put that out there.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love LinkedIn. I think, a lot of people talk about different social media websites and what to use. And I think that LinkedIn is kind of that untapped potential,
Oh
where
yes.
you're finding a lot more people that are business oriented, that have the same alignment of interest of you, rather than people who are on Facebook to kind of watch cat videos or whatever. So I think it's a very unutilized resource. And yeah, I'm definitely trying to take advantage of a lot more of LinkedIn for sure.
So true. So true. Well, once again, Anthony, thank you for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anthony. I appreciate it. It's definitely been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed talking with you for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll stay in touch.
For sure.